JavaScript is a popular programming language used for creating dynamic web pages and web applications. It runs on the client side, meaning that it is executed on the user's browser rather than on the server. Open up a code editor like VS Code. Now, there are two different ways to run JavaScript code on your computer. First, run on your terminal using Node command. For that you need to install Node.js from Node.js official website. Second, execute on the browser developer tool, but it is just for debugging purposes. We can run our JavaScript code in the browser with the help of the script in the HTML file. Notice, I have added defer attribute to the script element, which allows JavaScript code to run after all the HTML element or DOM is loaded in the web browser. This is useful because a lot of time your JavaScript code reference HTML element which won't be available until DOM is fully loaded. Now we have linked the JavaScript file with the index.html file. Our JavaScript code will be executed along with the HTML file. Now it's time to know about data types in JavaScript. Data types are of two types: primitive and non-primitive. There are 7 primitive data types: string, number, boolean, null, undefined, big int. The special characteristic of the primitive data type is that they are immutable, which means that their values cannot be changed once they have been created. When you assign a value to a variable of a primitive data type, the variable holds a copy of the value. Any subsequent changes made to the original value will not affect the value stored in the variable. For example, consider this code. In this code, when b is assigned the value of a, it holds a copy of the value 5. When a is later changed to 10, the value of b remains unchanged because it holds a separate copy of the original value of 5. This immutability ensures that the values of primitive data types are predictable and consistent throughout your code, which can help avoid unexpected bugs and make your code easier to reason about. Non-primitive data types. In JavaScript, non-primitive data types are objects, arrays, and functions. Unlike primitive data types, non-primitive data types are mutable, which means their values can be changed. Object. An unordered collection of key-value pairs. Objects are created using curly braces or the object constructor. Properties of an object can be accessed using dot notation or bracket notation. Array. It is an ordered collection of values, which can be of any type. Arrays are created using square brackets or the array constructor. Array elements can be accessed using their index 0, 1, 2 or by iterating over the array using loops. Non-primitive data types are stored by reference, which means that variables of non-primitive data types don't actually contain the object or array itself, but rather a reference to its location in memory. When you assign a non-primitive data type to a variable, you are actually assigning a reference to the object or array, not a copy of its value. This means that when you modify the object or array, all variables that reference it will reflect the change. For example, consider this code. In this code, obj2 holds a reference to the same object as obj1. When we change the name property of the object using obj1, the change is also reflected in obj2 because they both reference the same object. We will discuss about the function later in this video. But right now you should know the difference between null and undefined. Undefined is the default value of the variable that hasn't assigned any value and to a function that doesn't return any value. Null is similar in the sense that it represents an empty value which the developer assigns explicitly. Conditional statements. In JavaScript, conditional statements are used to perform different actions based on different conditions. We have if, else if, and else statements to perform conditional execution of code. Consider this code. Code inside if statement is executed only if condition 1 is true. If condition 1 is false and condition 2 is true, then code inside else if is executed. If none of the condition 1 and condition 2 is true, then code inside else statement will be executed. JavaScript provide another conditional statement, which is a ternary operator. It is a shorthand way to write an if-else statement in a single line of code. Here, condition is the condition that is checked, expression 1 is the value that is returned if the condition is true, and expression 2 is the value that is returned if the condition is false. Suppose we have a code written in if-else statement. We can refactor this code in one line. Here x is obviously greater than 5, so the condition is true. It will execute and return the first expression. Now there is one more important thing to understand. Truthy and falsy statements in JavaScript. In JavaScript, we have 6 falsy values. False, 0, empty string, null, undefined, nan. Consider this code. Here the value of a initialized with false Boolean value. Check if I change the value to true, it will execute if statement. Because the false is always false, true is always true. This is quite simple and straightforward. Now, let's change the value to 0. You see the else statement is executed. This is because the 0 is falsy value and number other than 0 is always true. Now, let's change the value to an empty string. Again, values other than empty string is true. Whether it is a special character or any number in string. In same way, if assign the value of a with null, undefined, nan, the else statement will be executed. Exclamatory sign in JavaScript is called logical not operator, which gives you the result in Boolean value whether true or false. If we console log an empty object, it will return the same empty object. But if we put logical not operator, it will give us result in Boolean. A single logical not operator means an alternative of the value, which is false. But in actual, an empty object is not a falsy value. If we put one more logical not operator, it will give us the actual value after reversing it again. In this way it keeps on reversing the value. Same with an empty array. Empty string. 0 number. Now another thing you should know, JavaScript also provides double equal to sign and triple equal to sign. Single equal to is used for assigning values to a variable in JavaScript. Double equal is used to compare two variables irrespective of the variable's data type. Triple equal is used to compare two variables, but this will check strict type, which means it will check the data type and compare two values. In JavaScript, var, let, and const are used to declare variables. Each has its own scoping rules and use cases. The var keyword was used to declare variables in older versions of JavaScript. Variables declared with var have function-level scope, which means that they are accessible within the entire function in which they are declared. If a variable is declared with var outside of a function, it has global scope, which means it is accessible throughout the entire code. The let keyword was introduced in ES6 and is used to declare variables with block-level scope. This means that a variable declared with let is only accessible within the block in which it is declared, that is within the curly braces. The const keyword is used to declare constants, which are variables that cannot be reassigned once they are initialized. Like let keyword, it is also block-level scope. The only difference is that it can't be reassigned with a new value. Suppose we have a function named example, inside which variable x is assigned a value 10. As the condition is true, it will execute inside if statement. Inside if, I have again declared a variable x with value 20. In console log, we'll get the value 20, quite straightforward. But outside if statement, the value of the x is also 20. Now let's refactor this code to see how let keyword works. As the variable x is defined with let keyword. And again, it is defined inside if statement. The variable defined inside if statement will have a different scope, as it will be a different variable. Also, when we console the value of x outside if statement, the value of the x will remain 10. Notice, if we remove the let keyword, it will assume as x which is previously defined here and overwrite the value of x with 20. If we refactor this code with const keyword, it will throw an error saying assignment to constant variable. But if we add const here, it will behave as a different variable. Hoisting is a behavior in JavaScript where variable and function declarations are moved to the top of their respective scopes during the compilation phase, before the code is executed. This means that even if a variable or function is declared after it is used in the code, JavaScript will still recognize it as if it had been declared before. For example, consider the following code. In this code, even though it is declared after it is used in the console.log statement, the output will be undefined instead of an error. This is because the declaration of a is hoisted to the top of the scope, and the variable is initialized with the value of undefined before the code is executed. Hoisting also works for function declarations, like so. Here, the function I am calling the function foo first without declaring it first. Because foo function is hoisted to the top of the scope, so the foo function can be called before it is defined in the code. However, it's important to note that hoisting only works for function and variable declarations, not for variable assignments. So if you declare a variable and assign a value to it in the same line, only the declaration will be hoisted, not the assignment. In this code, there is no variable declaration for b, so trying to access it will result in a reference error. There is lots of confusion while talking about let and const in hoisting. Let and const is also hoisted, but they are in temporal dead zone, means variable cannot be accessed without being initialized. Unlike var variables, which are initialized with a value of undefined. In this code, the let variable a is declared, but has not yet been initialized, and trying to access it will result in a reference error. This behavior occurs because the variable a is in the temporal dead zone, and cannot be accessed until it has been declared and initialized. To avoid the temporal dead zone, make sure to declare and initialize your variables before trying to access them within the block scope. So that's all for today's video. If you like this video, please do like and subscribe to support the channel. And I see you in next video.